Recorded live from the heart of the Bakken, it's the Williston Works Podcast.
Welcome to the Williston Works Podcast, brought to you by the City of Williston, North Dakota. Williston Works brings you in-depth discussions with the entrepreneurs, small business owners, and investors who are getting it done in Western North Dakota. I'm your host, Sean Wenko, Executive Director of the Williston Economic Development Office, and today we've got here Kevin and Malachi Black, a great entrepreneurial family, the Black family here in Western North Dakota, and we're going to talk a bit about their company, Creedence Energy Services. So Kevin, Malachi, great to have you guys on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to let you guys each introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do with the company.
Sure, you bet. My name's Kevin Black. Serve as one of the co-founders and president of Creedence. I actually live in Minot, but I spend a good chunk of my week over here in Williston.
I'm Malachi Black, and I run operations, and I live here right in Williston, North Dakota, and kind of just make sure the wheels are greased and things are running and turning. So,
Creedence Energy Services, what is it? What do you guys do? What sort of services do you provide?
So we're an oil and gas chemical service company. The best way to think about what Creedence does is we're like the doctors and the pharmacists of the oil field, except we're serving oil wells rather than humans. Just as the human body, as it ages, can break down, or we can have blockage in our arteries, really the same thing can happen in an oil well. As we produce oil and gas and water, that pipe can have a tendency to plug up with organic and inorganic material, for example, mineral scale. And what we do is we try to prevent that through chemical treatments from forming and eventually blocking off the production of that well. We also do deal with a lot of things like corrosion. Much as human bones can break down over time, the metallurgy of the pipe can break down as well. And so what we do is we apply corrosion inhibition products that prevent the corrosion of the metallurgy, again, to keep the wells performing and hopefully maintain that production over time.
So with the starting of Creedence Energy Services, I mean, is your background oil and gas industry, or where did this idea come from? Were you working someday and said, I think we could do this thing?
Yeah, actually, we both have a history of oil and gas.
yeah, I would say, all of us have kind of started. We've all gotten the industry with chemicals.
And over time, we just saw a lot of opportunities to optimize. We asked the question, why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way to do it? And over time, we saw there was definitely an opportunity to improve the operational efficiency of how these chemical treatments were being applied, and the selection of the chemistry as well. And over time, we thought, well, why not? Let's take a crack at it ourselves.
When you guys were getting started with this idea with Creedence Energy Services, what were some of the challenges that you faced early on? When we talk about, a lot of time people say, well, there's high costs of doing business, or we're trying to find the workforce. What was it for you guys? What were the challenges out there to get it up and running?
I think competing in oil and gas, it's a challenge in and of itself. I think for us, it was really just trying to penetrate the market. Certainly when we first started, we didn't have a lot of people, so the workforce wasn't a challenge. Now, that has certainly been a challenge as we've grown. Because we're in such a niche market, the majority of our challenges were more market-related and trying to just penetrate that market in the first place, I would say. Any
thoughts of expanding outside of the Bakken region and into other shale plays, or?
Well, it's actually already happening. This last March, we expanded to the Permian. So we set up a space down there in Midland, Odessa, and we're starting to service that market. And there's a lot of other exciting plays that are starting to really kick off across the country. Wyoming seems to be getting hotter. Certainly the Marcellus out in Pennsylvania is I think going well. So we have a lot of targets, but at the end of the day, the Bakken is home for us, and this will always be our priority. And frankly, we're making a lot of investments here in 2019 to continue the growth and to continue servicing the Williston Basin.
Well, and that's one of the questions I did want to ask is, what is it about Williston? Yeah, I mean, it is home. You guys born and raised here. I was born and raised here myself, moved away, came back, because it is home. But, really, what is it about Williston? Because you talk about your expansions into some of these other plays, and And yeah, you probably could get into some other areas that maybe have a little bit larger population base. They probably have some more services that we're still trying to get into this market. But, what really keeps you here? What is the thing about Williston?
I think far and away, the number one thing that makes us want to do business in Williston is just the pro-business attitude that our city has. I'll tell you, it's not just everywhere, even in the state of North Dakota. The atmosphere, the attitude, the willingness to get behind businesses, it's fairly unique. And when we look at where we want to make investments, Williston's right at the top, because we know that we're going to find a community that, as we face challenges, and I mean, there's always challenges when you're building buildings and you're buying land and you're growing, right? There's challenges that you run into, but we know that we have a group of individuals here in the city that are willing to help us get across those hurdles. And so that's why we want to be here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more, because the single biggest reason why this office is successful is we've got leadership in place right now that really understands the value of economic development and looking and building for the long term. And they're supportive of what we do. I always say they kind of let us off the leash and let us run a little bit with some of these crazy ideas, like a podcast that, this is season 2. Season 1 was just tremendously successful. But their support with the Star Fund as well, because the leadership in place right now realizes you've got to invest now for the future, and you got to believe in what's happening in Western North Dakota and in Williston, because this town North Dakota has become the number one place for millennials. We're seeing it here more and more every day. More and more millennials coming to this area, and just the demand for different types of services is something I didn't see when I grew up in the community. We were kind of more of a patch and maintain community because we just weren't growing. So it's tremendously exciting to see what happens. So I'm glad you guys brought that up, because we do have a lot of support for business development here in this area. One thing I want to jump back to, I think too, is you touched base on some of the success with your company in dealing with the oil and gas industry. We get calls all the time that people that want to break in to the industry and do business here, and I always tell them you got to get a presence here. You got to have boots on the ground. You got to build relationships, and I think that's one thing you guys have done a tremendous job with. Is you guys have the relationships out there, with the operators that are out there, and I think that pays huge dividends. Would you agree with that?
I would agree 100%. We actually just talked about that on the drive over here. Some companies, they market themselves through social media or more traditional methods of marketing. But a lot of times it's the handshake, Yep. It's the conversation, it's the networking. And those are things that you don't just create instantly. They take persistence. They take time to develop. But what we found is we've taken a very diligent approach to how we develop our business. And we're patient, and we just take it one step at a time. We celebrate every little success, because every little success matters. Yep. And over time, you can, put a lot of little successes together to create a big one. So we've been going at it for 4.5 years, and it's just been a grind one day after the other. But I think that patience ultimately pays off, and you treat your teammates the right way. You invest in your teammates, and they go to work and they build this great company for you. And it's really been fun to I think Mal and Wyatt, they'll both attest that it's been really fun to see all the people that we've hired, and so many of them are local, Yep. But we have some really great folks from out of state too that have Yep. joined the team, and they're doing a great job.
One final question. If there's investors, developers out there, they're looking at Williston, they're on the edge, they're not really too certain if they should jump in, what advice would you give them?
I would say, like Kevin had mentioned before, even with the relationships and stuff like that, there's a persistence to it. Be patient, but keep at it, keep that drive, keep that passion, and even when there's times where it can be rough, because there's gonna be rough times. But keep that positive attitude and keep persistent. And if you really want and care about, get involved with Williston, gain those relationships and get involved.
And I think it's important to look at the outlook of the Bakken for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Yep. Lynn Helms always says we're somewhere around the 3rd or 4th inning. Maybe we're a little bit past that. I don't know. But there is a lot of development yet to happen. and Williston's going to be at the heart of it. So if folks are looking at investing in Williston, come to Williston, talk to the economic development, talk to the Chamber of Commerce, get to know folks. You have to have a presence here, like you mentioned, right, Sean, and get to know the folks. You're going to find out really quick that this is a hot spot. There's a lot of activity. There's going to be a lot of activity for a long time, we think, and we're all in. And I think if you start looking at other businesses around town, you get to know other businesses, you're going to see how excited everybody is, and I think that will entice a lot of folks to make that investment.
Well, there's definitely a buzz out there. It's you just walk the streets or even drive around, you just see that this town it's hopping. There's people moving here every day, and we're settling in for what I call some good long-term economic growth. I mean, we're really building a city right now. And
it's quality of life too.
Quality of life, correct.
That's such a huge component when we talk about workforce. We hire a lot of young folks. I'd say the median age probably at Creedence right now is probably right around 30, which is pretty young for a service company. But we're hiring students right out of college that are coming from the east side of the state and elsewhere, and they want a quality of life. And I think a lot of their friends and family at first go, Williston, North Dakota, what are you thinking? And then they get over here and they're just like very pleasantly surprised and shocked at what a great community it really is.
I've said it before, Williston tends to get a bad rap the further you get away from the town, but when you get here, you realize that it really is a great community. So Kevin, Malachi, I really appreciate you guys coming. Owners of Creedence Energy Services, they're on the up and up. I don't see it slowing down anytime too soon for them, so thanks again. Thanks for listening to the Williston Works podcast. This is brought to you by the City of Williston. If you're a developer, business owner, entrepreneur, or site selector and would like to learn more about the opportunities in Williston, just give us a call and we'll help you make it happen. Like and subscribe for more podcasts, and to learn about Williston, visit willistondevelopment.com. I'm Sean Wenko, Executive Director of the Williston Economic Development Office. We will see you next time.